Tēnei te toki a rata kau ka mau ka ranga ake ki te tāhuhu nui o rehua. Ko tānei hakaputaina ki te whaiau ki te ao marama haumi e. Hui e, tai ki e. This week, on the Hui. Councils across the motu have been voting on whether or not to scrap their Māori wards. Māori councillors are live in studio to discuss the impacts of these decisions. And 1 year on from Ariki Rigby's death, her sister Anahera is fighting to get justice for her.
Everybody failed her. Everybody failed her.
Plus, we reflect on the week-long tangihanga of Kiingi Tuheitia and the new Māori monarch, his daughter, Te Arikinui Kuini Nga hono i te Potatau te Wherowhero te Tuawaru. Te hunga poroporo aki tia ana ki ngā marae maha o te motu haramai. Haere, tātou kei te ao maramati he wa Māori and welcome back to the Hui. Just 2 councils in the country who had to vote on Māori wards have voted to disestablish them, the Upper Hutt City Council and Kaipara District Council. Overwhelmingly, councils want to keep their Māori wards. So, where to now? Joining me in studio is Manawatu Māori Ward Councillor Bridget Bell. Bridget, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
No mai. Very good to have you on the program with us now. Why did the Manawatu Council vote to keep its Māori ward, do you think?
Manawatu District Council strongly feel that all wards should have been treated the same, and that has been the message that our mayor and all our councillors and tangata tiriti allies have said consistently. I think there's a gradient here in my council where some are supportive of a referendum as long as everyone goes through a referendum. Others in my council, tangata tiriti allies, feel strongly we shouldn't have to go through a referendum. And overall, I think in the last 2 years, if you look at Manawatu District Council's trajectory from a council that was really against Māori wards at the start, and now they're in a place where it was 11-1 at a vote, you can see the shift. It's no longer the threat that it once posed it to be.
11-1.
11-1
is a massive vote of endorsement.
Absolutely.
And support. Why do you think there was that support? Do you think that was because of the work you individually was doing, or because of the voices of the people that you represented that was able to be brought to the council itself?
Before the vote, we had what we call a long-term plan hearing, and there was the first time all our councillors got to see all of our marae and Manawatu, the kura and Māori entities come in, and they all strongly said to keep our Māori ward. And I think for the first time our council got to hear those voices and recognise the impact that it will have for them if we were to disestablish it. So I believe it's the work of the collective, but I don't want to acknowledge our iwi. We had tangata tiriti, we had Pākehā and Tauiwi that came into our council instructing us to keep it because it was important for them.
And as you said, it wasn't just Māori.
It wasn't just Māori.
Did it surprise you that so many tangata tiriti came out in support?
Absolutely. I found it quite emotional because I remember when I first came into council, Julian, there was an allergic reaction from the community, especially when I was campaigning. There were times that I had to pull out of the campaign for my own safety. So for it to then have this growth in just 2 years' time where we had community members who felt so strongly that this was the right thing to do for Manawatu was amazing to see and hear. And now I feel confident that we're going to have a different outcome next year.
What does a Māori ward councillor bring to the table that, but for that representation, would otherwise be different and therefore lead to a lack of outcomes, perhaps, for the community as a whole? What are people saying to you that you bring and that a Māori ward councillor brings to the table?
I think let's just reflect on something here, the difference between a general ward where a Māori sits in that seat and a Māori ward. The Māori ward has the mandate and the mana from your Māori constituents to sit there, and so you have the voice. You're able to, there is an expectation that you can weave the voices of your constituents, mana whenua, matawaka, into that space. And I think particularly here, if I was to contextualise it for Manawatu District Council, it was definitely needed. There was a breakdown in our relationship between iwi and council, and there has been a journey of healing. We've still got some room to grow, but it's definitely a massive improvement to what it was.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking about ways in which having that representation has meant that you've been able to isolate issues and determine issues better within the community, so it saves things like environment court processes or things like that happening.
Absolutely. In Manawatu district, we have a resource consent that's about to expire in 2 years' time, which is a wastewater discharge into the Aotearoa local river. And over 8 years ago, we ended up in an environmental court, and that's not a place that we want to be. And I think having a Māori ward in there, not to be the buffer, but to interpret for iwi and council what our priorities are, and actually recognise we all want the same thing. We all want a healthy river. We've just got different ways in how to get there.
And I don't mean to be so crude, but in doing so, you also end up saving the council money.
Oh, absolutely.
By keeping that process of going to environment court. I mean, we're talking what?
Millions. 3 million
really?
is what it cost ratepayers for when they decided to take it to the environmental court. And obviously on the iwi side, we didn't have those resources. We both lost. Our council wanted 30 years discharge. We wanted 0. We ended with 10.
So you end up with solutions that actually provide benefit for the community.
Absolutely.
Okay, the referendum. Why shouldn't people within the Manawatu district have a say on whether or not there should be a Māori ward for the Manawatu District Council, in your view?
I think when I look back to, again, equity, sure, everyone should have a say, but why are we only having a say on the Māori ward? The 5 general urban wards, no one's having a say. The 5 rural wards in Manawatu, no one's having a say. It's only mine that's up for debate on the value that it brings, the lonely seat that sits in council. And I think that is the brutality of what the referendum brings. It's so divisive. And Manawatu have come a long way from the division that we once had when we marched over 3 years ago.
Do you think, and judging by the representations both of Māori and tangata tiriti when talking about the Māori ward on the Manawatu District Council, what do you think will happen when that referendum is held next year? What will the voices of the people say, do you think, Bridget?
My hope is, and I want to reflect back to our late Kiingi, kotahitanga. That's what I hope for. That's what I'm manifesting, that we can come together and we can fight to save this ward.
If Prime Minister and Ministers, Cabinet, Government are watching us tonight, what do you say to them?
I say create a relationship with local government that's embedded in trust. You're creating a referendum that's going to cost councils money, a waste of money. You're also accelerating racism and causing division in our communities that we have to pay the price for. Communities and councils have to pay for the price for the referendum that they are imposing. What I will also say to our Prime Minister is that you believe in Māori voice, hence why you have Māori electorates in central government. Te Tai Hauaru, Manawatu is one of them. If you believe in them so much there, why don't you believe in it here? What is the difference?
Bridget, tēnā koe. I whai wahi mai koe kia matu, ngā mihi nui kia koe.
Tēnā koe te tingangi.
Kia ora maira. E te iwi haere ake nei, he takahiroa I te ara ki te tika coming up after 2 years. Ariki Rigby's whānau is still waiting for justice. kia ora mai anō hoki mai. 2 years ago, a teenage girl was found dead in the back of a burnt-out car in Hawke's Bay. Police initially thought her body was that of an animal. But it was Ariki Rigby, a young girl whose whānau is still waiting for justice and answers. Mea nei te puro, a Leighton Haker.
Motu Island sits in the heart of Tauranga's Waikareau estuary.
It feels very grounding and peaceful coming back here.
It's a long journey to get there, and each visit must be brief, bound by the tides that surround it.
But it's worth it. She's somewhere safe, that's well protected, and not just anyone can get to her.
A tapu place where Anahera Rigby can go to see her sister Ariki.
This is my favourite spot in the world because she's here.
In 2022, at just 18 years old, Ariki Rigby was murdered.
Good evening. A body was left in a burnt-out car for 2 days in Hawke's Bay after police reportedly thought it was a dead sheep.
The family of the woman found dead in a burnt-out car last week is tonight pleading for the public to come forward with information.
2 years on, and still no one's been arrested.
Everybody failed her. Everybody failed her.
Have you had a chance to grieve your sister yet?
When you take a huge hit, your whole meaning of life changes. Like the way you see your days. Like you don't even know if tomorrow, if you're going to even have it. She was such a good kid, straight up. She was our star. She was like top of her sports teams. In her like classes, she always have certificates and stuff. Athletics, she always come either first, second or third. And she was really good at all of it.
Ariki was a girl full of life who loved to entertain.
I don't know, she just found a way to make anyone laugh. I don't know how she did it. But she was crackerbees. She was funny. She would like take care of everyone around her. She was very like loved hard. She's the type that would never give up on someone.
And the two sisters always had each other's back.
Like we were really, really close. She would always say I was her most favourite person in the world.
Was she one of your favourite people?
Yeah, she was my best friend. She was my sister, but when I had kids, I realised the love was more like she was my own.
Anahera was 5 years older than Ariki, but they shared the same plan.
We had this, like, aim we were aiming for.
What was that aim?
We just wanted everything that we never had. That's it. Our mum moved a lot with us, so we would like be in Palmerston North. We've lived in Hamilton and like heaps of places. We would go on and off back to Hawke's Bay. We got moved out of our mum's care, and that's when we got split up.
Your sister didn't have it easy, did she, growing up?
No, and my life was hard, but her life was harder, I reckon.
Ariki moved between the care of different whānau members, oranga tamariki, and even Anahera took responsibility as her caregiver.
It must have been tough for you to have to sort of raise a younger sibling.
It was easy when she was younger. It's when she got older. She was just too much, and I'm her sister, and she's rebelling, and she's not listening to me. Like, I didn't want her to go down that path, so I gave her back to OT, and I told them to get her out of here.
A move that helped, but it didn't last.
Oranga tamariki discharged her from their care when she turned 18. They just pawned her off. I don't like that. They did her whole process wrong. Ariki started hanging out with all the wrong people and stuff like that.
Getting involved with gangs and the life that comes with it.
She was only tough because she had to be, not because she wanted to be.
In the shadow of Te Mata Peak runs the Tukituki River. Weaving through Te Mātua Maui, Hawke's Bay. Its banks hold the answers to dark secrets, like who killed Ariki Rigby. Because it was here, in the parking lot of this isolated walking track, that her body was found, in the back of a burnt-out car.
We have a clue of what happened, I guess, but would rather go off facts.
What would you say to police?
That they don't know what they're doing. They've got so much evidence and they still haven't done any arrests.
Police have never fronted for an on-camera interview about this case until now.
They need answers, they deserve answers. They want to know what happened to Ariki, and we totally get that.
Detective Senior Sergeant James Keane.
So I'm officer in charge of Operation Sphinx, which is the investigation into the death of Ariki Rigby.
Why now have you sort of decided to talk?
We've come to a point where we really want to appeal to the public. We believe the information is out there.
Police believe Ariki was killed late on the 2nd or early on the 3rd of September 2022.
We are aware that she had some gang links and associates. Many of them we have spoken to, and they have provided us with some good information. We've spoken to probably across 150 people, and numerous reports of information have come in, all of which we've had to attempt to corroborate or get some credibility to. It's been difficult. It's taken time.
So are you any closer to solving her murder?
I believe we've made good progress. It's been a long journey, but we're really committed to solving this for Ariki's family.
Do you have an idea of why she might have been murdered?
Oh, it's hard to say, to be honest. I mean, I would suggest that there was no lead up or anything like that. You know, tragic set of circumstances, as we know. So yeah, we can't really go into too much specific information on that. And there's no secret we're dealing with a burnt human remains within an enclosed vehicle, intensive heat, intensive fire. Fairly horrific.
Police initially failed to identify they were dealing with a homicide. They thought Ariki's body was a dead animal and left her in the car, destined for the wreckers. A man walking on this track discovered her 2 days later.
We've always acknowledged that there was a misidentification in the early days. Look, it was unfortunate. There's clearly no intent on behalf of the police for that to occur. We've made an apology to the family for that.
Has that had any impact on the case at all?
I don't believe it did, no. Am I confident we've made extremely good progress? Yes, I am. Am I confident we're doing everything in our power to solve this case? Yes, I am.
Have you considered reward for information?
We've considered many investigative avenues, and obviously we are continuing with the investigation, so those sorts of things are an option for the future. I look forward every day to be able to make that phone call to the whānau in order to say, we've got a positive result for you. So we keep working towards that.
A phone call Anahera has been waiting for since the day of Ariki's funeral.
This is hard. I'm going to go home after the sister. And I'm not going to be their sister.
Now, Anahera has to visit her on Motuopai Island. At the urupa of her whānau, the place where Ariki is buried.
It's really fulfilling to my heart, to my wairoa too. I was missing her a lot.
Do you think there's some people out there that do know what happened but just too scared to say anything?
Yeah. Like, maybe they want to, they're just too scared to.
What do you say to those people?
I understand. Yeah.
What does justice look like to you?
I guess the universe will decide that. I try not to think about that. And I just hope they get what they deserve, basically. The police have already failed us. So I just pray for my sister's justice. And then when her justice comes, it'll come at the right time. And I guess that's the power in having faith.
A faith that one day Ariki can finally rest.
I love you, sister.
And Anahera can finally grieve.
E rere tunu ana te aroha. Ngai ake e te iwi te whakarāpapoto e ngā ahunga katoa o te wiki kua pahure. Professor Tom Roa on the tangihanga for Kiingi Tuheitia and a new queen. E ki ana te kōrero mate atu he kiingi aramai he kuini. Tūranga Waiwai Manaai was flooded with love and respect for Kiingi Tuheitia last week. And it also saw the ascension of a new queen, Te Arikinui Kuini Nga hono I te pō. I sat down with historian Professor Tom Roa after the tangi and began by asking him for his reflections on an event like no other.
As I saw our future queen coming through the gate, it took my heart.
Why is that?
She's 27. In our terms, she's still a baby. She's popular with the people. She shows grace at the right times. And then when she needs to be angry at her brothers. So she got great promise. But boy, the responsibility now on her shoulders, or maybe it's on her head with that Bible. I have a concern for her, and I really want to be a part of how we might be helpful to her.
But the expectation is huge, isn't it?
Yes, yes. She has the attention of the masses. Again, the weight of that and how it is realised. This is the next step, how to realise that aspiration.
Because it's a heavy burden.
It's a heavy burden. Hara mai e ko. Hara mai pe piko tiro ki tō wā. Kua huri te ao.
Was the burden lifted somewhat because people acknowledge and like her and love her?
Yep. But I think that's one perspective. But you and I know that Māori thing, The more somebody congratulates and says how good you are, the heavier the responsibility for you to be good.
Do you see it as your responsibility to help in the journey that now Kuini Nga Waihono i te Pō takes?
Yep, absolutely.
How will you do that, do you think?
Number one, watch her back and say to people with their own agendas and say, hey, butt out, let her grow. I think that's the biggest help that we can do.
Can I ask you about what we've seen, just the amount of people? I mean, there's still lots of people, and there will continue, I think, to be a lot of people that will remember this huge event. Were you surprised by that, by the way?
No.
You weren't?
No. Well, we saw the hundreds of thousands on this road inside, and when I was at full capacity, standing room only, and that's a big campus. Down at the river, as they took Tuheitia there, accompanied by his successor, thousands, and along the river, up at the mountain, hundreds of thousands. Over this week, the thousands per day, and then you have the people who've been watching on television, watching backsides glued to their seats to catch this moment in history.
Nationally and internationally.
And internationally. All of the indigenous world, at least, are watching this as a model to consider how can we put ourselves together. So that the job for Kuini Nga Waihono i te Pō, it's daunting to me. And all I want to do is be at her beck and call to say, what do you want?
Do you believe, fervently believe, that kotahitanga can and will be achieved in the time of Kuini Nga Waihono i te Pō?
Yes.
How?
Ngā Waihono i te Pō as a personality, and I think she might have got this from her mother and father, is a unifying force at the lowest of levels as well as the highest of levels. We sometimes give so much attention to the highest of levels, parliamentary, internationally, but Ngā Waihono i te Pō touches the ordinary bloke and blokeess. She has a magic, and with that magic we have to, I believe, start the kotahitanga at the very flax roots. She is a practical person, which she did get from her father, but she also has a potential to do much more. And I think given the room to grow, given the opportunities and given the understanding that people are with her to make that grow without being judgmental, without being critical. To critique, yes, but not to be critical, negative. It'll happen. In fact, it must.
It must. So in closing, as we reflect on the life of Kiingi Tuheitia and on the man of Kiingi Tuheitia, what's the thing that will stay with you from the man that you knew as Kiingi Tuheitia?
Cool guy, man. He was personable. Could you walk down the street, see King Charles and say, hey, you bro? In fact, if you didn't do that to him, say, hey, you are.
Stop being a snobber.
And in his wellness, he'd stop and have a beer. Yeah. That's my fondest memory of him. But I wasn't his best friend, and at times he was not happy with me. That's life.
That's life.
He was direct, but in that directness, how you bro?
Te papa tēnā koe whai waihi mai koe ke. Ngā manakitanga ki rungi a koe, ke kurua ko toha, kurua tamariki, me tō whānau whānui hoki. Tēnā koe.
Kia koe ta. Ki te runga mātakitaki nei a tāu. Mauri ora.
Tēnā koe. Mauri ora kia tātou. Ai, pai Māori re kia tātou katoa. Kia hatia, ko paenga ngā mahi I tēnei wā. Join us next week for our Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori special, Te Wiki Whakanui, i te reo Māori. Kia mau, ki te tūranga o Taputupua, te haumi e, hui e, taiki e.
Hey Kiingi! Hey Kiingi!
Hey Queenie! Hey Queenie! Ko te reo, te take.
Nā te puna whakatongarewa, te hui, i tautoko.